and he reached up with his right hand, and I believe he touched her hair or her shoulder on her right side. I didn't see it directly. And and so at that point she kind of swatted his hand away, and at that point it was, to me, it had gone on too far. He had already made put Jennifer in a real uncomfortable position, and by touching her hair, and she slapped him. At that point, I was telling him to get out of the car and to go find Christian. I probably didn't get maybe even the first word out, and when he snapped, and he forcefully attacked Jennifer, who was right in front of him.
And did you see it or feel it?
Well, honestly, I wasn't looking directly at him. In fact, I was disgusted with his behavior, and I don't think I was looking. I know I wasn't looking directly at him. And I said, I was in the process of telling him just get out the car, and it all happened all at once. And it was with enough force that the whole vehicle shook. And I turned and witnessed him with his arms locked around her neck.
And was she still in the car? Was she still in the seat at the time?
Yes.
Do you recall if there was a headrest on the seat?
There is headrest.
Where was that in relation to her head?
The headrest was probably at least as high as the top of her head, and maybe even an inch or so above her head, the top of the headrest.
Okay. Is it one of those adjustable headrests?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you recall if there was any space difference between the headrest and the top part of the seat?
Yeah, I don't recall, but I believe there was, considering both Billy and I had arrived there in the vehicle. It was probably set up for us, who each one of us are right around probably 6'3". So I'm sure, I don't remember distinctly, but I'm sure that it was.
So after you felt this jolt, what did you see?
I saw Billy with his arms locked around Jennifer's neck.
Can you describe how his arms were positioned?
His forearm would have been directly upon her neck, with his arms crossed. With his, I distinctly remember his left hand being over top of his right elbow, locked in that position.
What did you do with him?
Well, I immediately reacted by grabbing at his arms and prying at his arms. Jennifer never, at that point, had moved in a defensive manner. Never once putting her arms up to what one would assume if something like that happened. She would assume that someone would immediately attack that which is causing the pain and discomfort. But she was completely limp at that point.
How did you know that?
No, she was limp. Her arms were rested at her side, and her head was turned to the right out the passenger side window, and her whole body was just slack.
And at some point he let her go?
Yeah, I grabbed he didn't voluntarily let her go. I was prying at his arms, and I pried his arms off of her, and once I'd finally gotten his arms off of her, I realized that she was dead, and I wasn't sure what to do.
What about her later made you think that she was dead?
Well, immediately I assumed that her neck was broken, because it happened so quickly, and she went lifeless so quickly that
The arms were off of her neck before you pulled it up.
probably within 5 seconds, I would say. And he was yelling at me while I was prying his arms off of her. I was yelling at him. Perhaps he doesn't recall, but I was yelling at him to just let her go. And when I finally got his arms off of her, it was perhaps maybe 10 seconds later. I think that perhaps in such a traumatic experience that time is sometimes hard to judge, but maybe within 10 seconds, I began to drive.
And when you left that parking space, did you have any reason to believe that she was still alive?
No, I knew at that point she was dead. And I really didn't know what to do.
Is that part of the reason that you drove?
Oh yeah, well, of course, that's exactly why I drove. I didn't know what else to do with my swim buddy yelling at me from the back seat just to drive, and realizing this heinous crime that he just committed. And I think it, twofold was the reason that I drove. Is one, I guess, a distorted sense of loyalty to my swim buddy, and like in occasions in the past, I thought of making sure that he didn't get in trouble. And secondly, I just had no other idea what to do.